Have you heard what really happened to Angus Young? Stories spread like wildfire after his mysterious letter at Wembley. But that was only the beginning. Fans think it's just getting gold catching up, but the truth goes deeper. A quiet moment during tour, abandonedly secret, and a choice that could end a DC forever. Ready to find out what no one else wants to say? In early June 2025, a CDC found themselves in hot water after a TikTok video from their May 4th PowerUp Tour show at Gillette Stadium blew up on social media. The video showed Brian Johnson singing Bing, almost covered up by crowd noise, causing tons of criticism. Fans started worrying about the band's ability to put on the amazing shows they were famous for. Many asked the group to quit, saying their age had finally caught up to them. For some, seeing Angus Young walking in his famous schoolboy outfit at age 70 felt more like a reminder of getting old than honoring rock history. Critics said the show looked tired. They said it was better took away than risk becoming boring. However, not everyone felt this way. Many others stood up for the band, pointing out that their stage presence still had the kind of raw energy that most younger bands could only dream of. Angus Young, especially, got praised for his unbeatable passion and energy. Supporters pointed out that even with all the viral criticism, ticket sales stayed super high. The so-called decline seemed disconnected from the numbers, which showed a very different story. Even with all the controversy, then Murs told the truth. On June 26th, Ticketmaster announced a record-breaking day with over 370,000 tickets sold across all events. More than 1.7 million people waited in online lines. Several cities sold out within hours, forcing organizers to add extra dates to meet them. A sold-out Wembley show made Angus write a heartfelt open letter to fans. The letter was released on the band's official website and social media pages. Angus's message is both a tribute to the band's legacy and a thank you to millions of fans who have supported them for almost 50 years. The Wembley concert, part of the band's PowerUp Tour, has been widely praised as a career-defining performance filled with raw energy, nostalgia, and emotional grooves. In his letter, Angus wrote, "As I stood on that stage at Wembley, looking out at a sea of faces, screaming every word back at us, I felt something I hadn't quite felt before, a sense of completion. It was as if everything had come full circle. Night was not just another show. It was a moment and team I'll carry with me forever," he continued. "To my bandmates, past and present, I thank you. It's been the read of a lifetime. To Brian, Phil, Stevie, and Cliff, thank you for giving your all every night, for standing by me through its ups and downs, and for being part of this incredible journey." Fans around the world have responded with lots of gratitude, sharing messages and memories of how the band's music shaped their lives. The concert featured classics like Back in Black, Highway to Hell, and Thunderstruck, with a set list that covered generations. Then came an even more shocking twist. A European tabloid claimed Angus had told close friends that 2025 would be his final year, AC/DC. The report mentioned creative exhaustion, tension within the band, and frustration with the corporate machinery thought now controlled much of the operation. This open letter and the rising retirement rumors didn't just stir emotions. They made fans deeply curious. What was really going on behind these scenes? Was it just age catching up or something far more personal? To find out real reason, we need to look closer. In recent months, rumors have gone around thought 2025 may mark the end of Angus Young's time with a CDC. Not because of age or health, but because of behind-the-scenes battle over the soul of the band. Sources close to the industry claim there's an internal split. A brewing creative and corporate war thought has quietly simmered for years, according to reports from different light forms. The tension comes from a growing push by the band's management record label to align with modern trends. These include influencer teams, merchandise-driven touring strategies, and even proposals for AC/DC-branded lifestyle products. For Angus, a mank noun for his raw stage energy and old-school rock ethic, these moves reportedly clashed with everything he believed the band stood for. Read the Threads suggests that Angus has privately expressed frustration over the distortion of the AC/DC brand. The image of leather jackets and gritty guitar solos, once organic, now risked being reduced to hashtags and curated sponsorships. Despite the noise, neither the band nor their record label has issued a formal statement. This silence has only fueled speculation. Is Angus quietly preparing to walk away, choosing integrity over industry pressure? Or is this just media span around a man trying to evolve in a changing world? One thing is clear. Fans are no longer asking if something is shabaning. They're asking what exactly is going on behind the scenes. To understand how Angus reached this breaking point, we need to go backing team to the personal tragedy that shook the very foundation of AC/DC. On March 7, 2016, a crisis hit AC/DC that would change its course forever. Brian Johnson, the band's iconic frontman, got a devastating warning from his doctors. They told him continuing to perform at stadium level volume could result in total and permanent hearing loss. For Amon, whose life had been shaped by music, the news was both shocking and heartbreaking. It wasn't just a career-threatening diagnosis. It was a deeply personal loss for Johnson. Stepping away from the stage felt like losing a part of himself. Upcoming shows on the Rock or Bust tour still scheduled. The band faced an impossible choice. Cancel the rest of the tour and face millions in losses, or somehow find a way to go on without their lead singer, Angus Young. The band's lead guitarist, one of its founding members, was forced to make the call, rather than end tour abruptly. He reached out to Zimian, unexpected, Axl Rose, the unpredictable but powerful frontman of Guns N' Roses. The decision rocked fan base. Some were excited to see a fusion of rock legends. Others were furious, feeling that no one could step into Brian's shoes. While the debate played out across headlines and comment sections, behind the scenes, the band was quietly dealing with loss and uncertainty. Brian later opened up a booth's emotional pain of stepping away, saying it felt like finding your house. It wasn't just about missing shows, it was about being gripless in a role that meant everything to him. And yet, even with that break, the band carried on. Angus called Axl a lifesaver, crediting him with helping AC/DC stay on track during a moment when everything seemed to be falling apart. Other than this crisis, they faced a similar situation in 2014. In late 2014, Phil Rudd, the drummer Woe, had powered their rhythm section for nearly 4 decades, was arrested in New Zealand. The charges were serious and unexpected. Authorities accused him of attempting to procure a murder alongside a possession of methamphetamine and cannabis. The story dominated headlines, painting a chaotic picture of one of Africa's most disciplined bands spiraling behind the scenes. The attempted murder charge was eventually dropped, but the damage was already done. In 2015, Rudd pleaded guilty to drug charges and threats to kill. He was sentenced to 8 months of home detention. For AC/DC, theming could not have been worse. Their global reputation rested not only on iconic riffs and legendary performances, but also on the consistency of their lineup. With Rudd unable to travel, the band had to make a difficult call. They placed him with Chris Slade, a former drummer who had briefly played with them in the early 90s. This marked a tense period for Angus Young. In an interview, he later admitted that working with Phil had become increasingly difficult even before the arrest. Getting Rudd into the studio was challenging. Promoting the album, shooting videos, and preparing for the tour became even harder. It was clear the drummer was struggling with more than just legal trouble. Despite controversy, AC/DC Pushed forward with the release of Rock or Bust, Boot Something was missing. Critics noted the absence of Rudd's distinctive drumming style. And fans could feel the shift. The tour went on, but there was a looming sense of change within the band. Angus, however, refused to let the legacy fall apart. He focused entirely on keeping the music alive, especially as his older brother Malcolm, AC/DC's co-founder and rhythm guitarist, was battling dementia in silence. Phil Rudd's fall from grace became a footnote by 2020 when he officially rejoined the group for PowerUp. This album was more than just a return to form. It was attribute to Malcolm, who had passed away in 2017. The recording sessions were filled with emotion. Angus used old riffs he and Malcolm had worked on years. Bringing Rudd back into the fold was a bold move, but one that made the album feel complete. The band reunite with familiar energy, channeling their grief and loyalty into one last powerful project. All these crises could have broken any band, but Angus Young stayed strong. Not because it was easy, but because he had already faced storms that most never knew about. So, what explains this unmatched loyalty and strength? Let's trace back the electrifying journey that brought Angus to this very crossroad. Long before fans debated his final bow, Angus Young had already secured his place among music's greatest. His influence was not only about loud riffs or energetic solos, it was about treating what it meant to be a rock performer. His relentless energy, schoolboy stage persona, and piercing guitar tone didn't just fill stadiums, they defined them. In 2003, AC/DC reached a defining moment in their career. The band was officially inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, a testament to their impact on global music culture. Angus, dressed in his trademark school uniform, accepted the honor in person. His presence alongside names like Steven Tyler, The Clash, and the Ramonesilla died that he was not simply part of the crowd. He was the standard. Critical recognition didn't stop there. In 2012, Australian guitar magazine Angus the greatest Australian guitarist of all time. This title carried serious weight considering the fierce competition in the Australian rock scene. The win placed him above virtuosos like Tommy Emmanuel and Ian Moss. His technical precision had long dominated guitar circles. But Angus wasn't about clean execution. He was about feel, presence, and untempered emotion. Back in 2006, Kerrang, the voice of hard rock and metal, awarded and the prestigious Legend Award. Unlike typical fan-voted titles, this honor came from within the industry, recognizing his contribution to Degan's identity. By that point, his homage was inseparable from the global idea of rock itself. Whether you grew up in the 70s, 90s, or even the streaming era, you could likely picture Angus mid-stride, guitar slung low, sweat flying from his brow. His influence didn't stop at awards or lists. Guitarists across generations, from Slash to Dave Grohl, have cited Angus as a major influence. His blues-rooted playing and raw distortion helped shape the harder edge of modern rock, even paving the way for genres like punk and grunge. Still, as towering as these achievements stand, they came after years of pressure, exhaustion, and painful personal decisions. At times, the glitter of trophies only masked what Angus was going through. Let's now tell you about one of the most turbulent nights on one of Angus' tours when something unexpected happened. The kind-off moment that no one talks about. Something that could have derailed the entire performance. It was a scene all night bands saw unfold in real time. At a concert in Arizona around the year 2000. Angus Young was deep into Bad Boy Boogie One. A fan did the unthinkable. He threw a beer at him mid-performance. The atmosphere froze. Thousands watched, unsure of what would come next. Would Angus fight back? Would the show collapse into chaos? But Angus didn't flinch. He walked over to the troublemaker, looked at him straight. in the eyes, and without a word, jiggled the guy's nose. It wasn't violent, wasn't loud, but it was sharp, unexpected, and commanding. With a simple gesture, Angus then signaled security to step in. The audience roared, not in outrage, but in respect. The band never stopped playing. The rhythm never cracked. The concert rolled forward as if nothing had happened. Yet, the moment left a mark. This was more than a Funyun stage encounter. It became an iconic example of how to shut down disorder with grace. Angus didn't give the fan power. He took it away with a touch of humor and a lightning-fast decision. That one move saved the night and likely spared the fan from a much harsher reaction. This calm and quick-thinking presence is more than just a performance trick. It's part of Angus's DNA. To understand that poise, you have to go back to the suburbs of Sydney, where the youngest of the Young brothers grew up, born in Glasgow, Scotland. In March 1955, Angus Young grew up in a working-class family packed into a small flat with his siblings and hard-working parents. The Young household was always filled with noise, sometimes arguments, sometimes music, but always brimming with character. His father, William Young, worked long hours as a handyman and a factory worker, while his mother, Margaret, held the family together through grit and quiet strength. Life wasn't easy, but it was full of strong personalities and relentless energy. In June 1963, the Youngs made a bold decision that would forever change the course of Angus's life. Like thousands of others, they joined the UK's £10 migrant scheme, a government-sponsored EdPIS, to Australia that promised sunshine and opportunity in exchange for a small fee. The journey to the other side of the world was not luxurious. Once they arrived, the family was Placiden, a refugee-style migrant hostel where comforts were few and space was tight. Despite the hardships, the move offered something invaluable, a fresh start. Eventually, they settled in Burwood, a quiet suburb on the outskirts of Sydney. Their new home was modest, but it gave young children the freedom to explore themselves and their surroundings. While many of his siblings, including future AC/DC co-founder Malcolm, spent hours outdoors playing soccer or hanging out with local kids, Angus found a different rhythm. He gravitated towards solitude, preferring the comfort of his room where he could lose himself in music. It was in that small room that Angus picked up a cheap guitar and started to teach himself. He didn't learn from books or teachers. Instead, he sat for hours listening to the radio, studying records, and copying the riffs of the Beatles and Chuck Berry. His fingers became familiar with the fretboard, not through discipline, but through obsession. He played until his fingers ached and his ears could anticipate every note. Thatro, unrefined, emotionally driven playing, became the heartbeat of what AC/DC would one day stand for. Music wasn't the only thing developing in Burwood. AC/DC's legendary image took root during an ordinary backyard jam session. Angus's sister Margaret, noticing the youngest Young was still small for his age, handed him his old-school tee-on shorts and suggested he wear them while performing. As AC/DC began to rise through the rock ranks, Angus's image as the untouchable school boy grew. But behind the persona stood a man deeply loyal to his roots and fiercely protective of his family, especially his brother Malcolm, who had always been more than a bandmate. He was his rock behind Angus' rock-solid stage presences, a deeply private man and a touching final act for his brother Malcolm. What fueled the fire behind their last album? And how did the brothers channel decades of struggle, loyalty, and lamento one final musical statement? While Angus Young's guitar roars through stadiums, his personal life remains strikingly quiet. Away from the stage lights, Angus has long embraced a life of stability and privacy. His enduring marriage to Ellen van Lochem, a Dutch native he wed in the early 1980s, stands out in a world where rock star relationships often burn out fast. Together, they've built a life that exists far from media frenzy. Their time eyes split between tranquil residences in Australia, the Netherlands, and the UK, offering Angus the privacy he's always valued. Though known for his relentless stage energy, Angus keeps a disciplined routine. He never drank alcohol, a choice that separated him early on from many of his peers in the music scene. Smoking remains his one visible vice. But even with that, he's avoided major health issues and continues to perform with surprising vigor well into his senior years. He rarely gives interviews, avoids social media, and steers clear of celebrity culture. In many ways, Angus has always been more focused on the music than the fame. That devotion was a mistake in 2020 when he led a CDC BACK into the studio for what would become a deeply emotional project. PowerUp, released in November of that year, wasn't just another album. It was a revival of both the band's spirit and a private promise Angus had made to his older brother, Malcolm. The two had spent years writing together in silence, long before Malcolm's battle with dementia overtook him. Rather than let those unused riffs fade into the past, Angus brought them back to life, crafting an entire album around their final musical conversations. Bringing the classic lineup back together was no small feat. Brian Johnson had previously suffered hearing issues that forced him to step away. Cliff Williams had retired. Phil Rudd had faced legal trouble. But under Angus' quiet leadership, the band reunited, finding new energy and familiar sounds. PowerUp was a roaring success, topping charts globally. Yet for Angus, it was more than commercial. It was emotional closure. Through PowerUp, Angus offered fans not only new music, but also a glimpse into the bond that had always powered a CDC. He never made a show of grief. Instead, he honored Malcolm in the best way he knew, through loud, unapologetic rock, shaped by thievery riffs they had once written in a quiet room together. Today, as younger generations discover a CDC and older fans continue to return, Angus' legacy grows. Stronger, he has never chased her trends or softened his sound. His commitment to pure rock and roll, built in simplicity, rhythm, and feel, has made AC/DC timeless. With PowerUp, Angus didn't just keep the band alive. He ensured that its heart, rooted in familiar and fire, would never fade. What do you think about Angus Young possibly hanging up his guitar for good? After everything's given to rock music, does retirement feel like the right move, or would Yao win one last tour? Share your thoughts in the comments below.